All right, y'all, we back with another reaction right here on ABP Reactions. And y'all know we've been on top of this David case since it started, man. But right now, we got an update that David might be charged. Let's see what's going on, man.
In a brand new report, it is being suggested that singer David may about to be indicted, formally charged with murder in connection with the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, the young girl whose dead body was reportedly found in his car. Now, if you're shocked, if you're confused by this, if you're wondering what to make of this, you aren't alone. We are going to break down this new reporting and, if true, what this means and how it could play out. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. What an update in the David and Celeste Rivas Hernandez investigation, because after all of these months, after speculation, after reporting about grand juries, after a back and forth on whether singer David is in fact the suspect or not in connection with the death of this 14-year-old girl, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, who was found in a Tesla reportedly registered to the romantic homicide singer back in September in LA. After all of that, now TMZ is reporting that he will likely face murder charges. Now, I have to take a second to explain how confusing this is if true, okay? I say if true because obviously there is no way to officially confirm this. Authorities are not going to confirm this. I mean, the New York Post just reported that they reached out to a Los Angeles District Attorney's Office spokesperson who said the case hasn't been presented to the office. But TMZ is reporting—
See, this is all over the place, man. It's just all over the place. Everybody tells different stories. The LAPD, TMZ, everybody's stories be different. And like, what is really going on with this case? Like, why did it take so long? I think everybody could have assumed it was him, but why now? What made y'all feel it's him? Let's see. Let's see what they say.
That this is likely that David could be charged with murder because the reported grand jury hearing this case may be asked to hand down an indictment. Now, assuming for a moment that there is a grand jury, and I think we can, safely say that may be true. There was reporting about a grand jury and certain witnesses testifying because they appeared in the courthouse, like David's manager, Robert Morgenroth. So assuming that reporting is true, you can assume that perhaps a grand jury has been impaneled. But we always thought that it was an investigative grand jury. This is different. An investigative grand jury is one that helps to gather evidence, subpoena documents, compel people to testify, but they don't actually return an indictment. And when I say an indictment, formal charges. But now, TMZ is reporting that their unidentified sources claim no. The jury that has allegedly been hearing evidence for the past several weeks is one that can vote to return back an indictment. And their sources tell them that authorities believe David was involved in Celeste's death. So even if it is true that there is a grand jury and this is
I think we all thought that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a given. But what makes you say it? That's what, because y'all done went this many months without, without putting his name in it, without even looking at him as a suspect. What now, after all that obvious shit, what now makes you say it?
Grand jury that can indict someone, do we know for sure that it would be David that would be the subject of an indictment? And do we know that it would be for murder? No. But let me lay this out for a second, because last month, and what makes this confusing, and I want to put it all into context, last month, the LAPD came out with a statement that said, quote, the vehicle, talking about the Tesla where Celeste had been found, the vehicle had been parked at the location from which it was towed for several weeks. So Miss Rivas Hernandez may have been deceased for several weeks before the discovery of her body. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner has not yet determined the cause or manner of Miss Rivas Hernandez's death. As such, it remains unclear whether there is any criminal culpability beyond the concealment of her body, meaning there might not be a homicide charge. And then more recently, the LAPD told KTLA that they stand by that prior release.
Because they were saying it could have been an overdose. She could have took drugs, could have been an overdose, and they tried to hide the body. So they didn't necessarily kill her. It could have been an overdose. That was one narrative, but let me know what y'all think. If y'all been keeping up with this from day one like we have on ABP Reactions and you've been doing your own thing, let us know in the comment section if you know any updates.
So if that's the case, why the change, right? I mean, if it's true David is now being considered for homicide charges, what happened? Or, by the way, is he going to be indicted in connection with just the disposal or concealment of her body? Maybe he won't be indicted at all. But one of the complicating factors is whether something happened in the autopsy findings, right? Was there something in the toxicology reports? Was there something in the ME's reports? Was there something about cause and manner of death that changed the whole scenario? Remember, the cause and manner of death hasn't been revealed. The LAPD successfully petitioned the court to seal the medical examiner's records related to Celeste's death. The LAPD said in a statement that this was done, quote, only to ensure detectives from Robbery Homicide Division learned of important information surrounding her death before the media and the public. The order was not sought to undermine transparency. But the bottom line is we don't know if those findings led to a different conclusion. Did things change a bit? Yeah. It was reported that David was being considered a suspect by police, that they were looking at this as a homicide. To be clear, though, that wasn't officially confirmed by authorities.
Hey, my question is, where the hell has this David nigga been all this time since September to now? You haven't seen, like, usually, like, the paparazzi will go take pictures of these niggas when they outside or something. We haven't seen one picture of this nigga, right? Have y'all? Have y'all seen a picture of him since this accusation of murder, of him out somewhere? I haven't seen not one goddamn picture. Where the fuck is this nigga at?
What they did confirm in a statement over Thanksgiving was the following. The Los Angeles Police Department is aware of the recent stories posted by various media outlets about the David Celeste Rivas investigation and would like to dispel some misinformation contained in their reporting. The body of Celeste Rivas was not frozen when it was discovered on September 8th, 2025. She had not been decapitated. We have evidence that David traveled to the Santa Barbara area sometime during the spring of 2025. The reason for that trip is still under investigation, and we've drawn no conclusions at this point about the relevance of the trip to this case. So yeah, that release was done to correct the record on some reporting on the state of Celeste's body, but most...
Golly, so she wasn't decapitated. Okay. That's what I'm saying. There's so many stories out there. This is fucking confusing as fuck now.
Importantly about that, the reason I brought it up, they also mentioned this apparent trip that David took. So that was big. That was confirmation. That was seeming confirmation that they were looking into David in some capacity. And also, according to reporting from outlets like Fox LA, David stopped cooperating with authorities. He also reportedly lawyered up, that he retained renowned criminal defense attorney Blair Burke. And also, I'll note, we don't know where David is, right? He hasn't been publicly seen after he canceled his tour in the wake of Celeste's body being found.
Exactly. Where the hell is this nigga at? How the hell do you duck and dodge the media and paparazzi for this long? Like, where the fuck is... This nigga's not coming out the house wherever he is. I've never seen somebody that's got a case this hot and, like, nobody... A picture hasn't surfaced yet with like a paparazzi asking him about it or something. This is a weird dude, man.
But you go back to this. You go back to this report that he may likely be indicted for murder. That is major. And if true, it sets a whole new chapter in this case and potentially provides a lot of answers as to what may have happened to Celeste, the girl who disappeared in 2024 when she was just 13 years old, was allegedly in some sort of relationship with the 20-year-old singer. And I will also note that it's been reported that seasoned homicide prosecutor Beth Silverman is spearheading this grand jury presentation. Actually, when you go back to Morgan Roth, so the guy who apparently manages David, runs the record label, the touring company, TMZ reported that Morgan Roth was seen outside of a courtroom and was overheard telling his lawyer that the DA, so presumably Silverman, quote, she was very pushy on why I didn't call police, and I said I feel like I didn't have the responsibility to do that and just wanted to continue with the tour. Now, this is all reported. We can't confirm it ourselves, what was said, what wasn't said, but we have to talk about this.
Oh, this is a new picture. I never seen this one. They wasn't really putting out pictures of the manager, but, well, he's the label, the touring agency, everything. But it's him and a black guy. Okay, all right. So I never seen this picture, all right.
And I will also say, according to TMZ, it was overheard in that hallway that this grand jury could be hearing evidence till February. So even if an indictment or a potential indictment was on the horizon, we may not see it soon. All right, so I want to bring on my friend, trial attorney Rich Schoenstein, to talk about this. Rich, you know, a lot of this is speculation. A lot of this is reporting based on what we're seeing. What do you make of it? What do you make of the reporting? I laid out how confusing this is, how it's a little bit of backlash. It seems to be inconsistent with what we've seen in the past. But do you think that this is a realistic possibility? Right now we're talking about potentially this grand jury indicting David for murder. What do you make of this reporting?
I want to ask y'all the same question. What do you make of it, Taser Gang? Do y'all think David is guilty? We haven't seen the nigga. He hasn't said nothing, tweeted nothing. The stories are all over the goddamn place. But what does your gut tell you? What does your gut tell you? Because at this point, all you can do is go with your gut feeling, because nobody's presenting facts. And it seems like when somebody said it is a fact, somebody else going to come out and counter and say, that isn't a fact. This is what's going on. Her body was frozen. Her body wasn't frozen. She was decapitated. She wasn't decapitated. Like, who the fuck? What is going on, man? What about these tools in the house? Are y'all going to come out and say it wasn't tools in the house? Like, the car was found on this day. No, the car was found a month before that. It's just been like inconsistent stories going on this whole time. So it's kind of like, what the fuck?
Well, I think it's a possibility, and I agree with you. It's very speculative because you don't really know what a grand jury is going to do until they do it. It's not a live proceeding. We don't have access. We don't know for a fact all of the evidence that's being presented or what the purpose even is. The initial reports had been, I think, that this was what we call an investigative grand jury, right? So the idea there is you have a lot of witnesses or potential witnesses who don't want to talk to authorities. This may shock you, but some people don't like talking to the police, especially if it's high-profile matters. So you convene a grand jury so you can subpoena people, bring them in, swear them under oath, put them under penalty of perjury, and question them in front of a grand jury. That's the power of an investigative grand jury. And that's what we thought initially was happening here.
Unless the reporting was wrong, unless it really wasn't an investigative grand jury, and it was a grand jury that was tasked with securing an indictment, or there is a second grand jury that's been impaneled after the investigative grand jury, or there is no grand jury, or there's still just an investigative grand jury that won't release an indictment. But, I guess the question is, why that change? That's confusing.
If it changed, and listen, I think all of the possibilities you just laid out are out there. It might have been a regular grand jury from day one. This might be a new grand jury. They might have changed it. But if it changed from an investigation to seeking an indictment, then that leads me to believe that the prosecutors think they have gathered enough evidence to sustain an indictment and to prosecute the case. That would be the thing that changed, the amount of evidence the prosecutors had.
Now, I have to ask you, if this reporting is true, why they now believe, again, we don't know for sure, but why there could be a murder charge, why this is a homicide.
Right. That's the fucking answer we need, bro. Why now? Why all of a sudden? Why not for the last 3-4 months? But all of a sudden, now y'all believe. What the fuck is going on? Why y'all didn't? It kind of felt, well, it did feel like an open and shut case in the beginning. I ain't gonna lie. Like, come on, man. Right down the street from his house, inside his car, in a trunk, been missing. Last person she was seen with was him. All the signs point to him. Like, who would kill her outside of him and leave the body in front of his house? Like, or was it the theory of her doing something, overdosing, and he panicked and put her in a trunk? But that don't even make sense. It's like, huh? I don't know, man. Then you look at all his videos, it kind of tells a story, and then you be like, I don't want to judge a book by its cover, but some books need to be judged. Some books need to be judged. And I don't know, man.
What would have led them to conclude that? Because there was prior statements that indicated there might be no crime other than concealment of a body. There was talk about, was Celeste's death accidental? Was it an overdose? We don't know for sure. But I do wonder, was there something, let's say, from the ME's report, the toxicology findings, that would indicate that this was a homicide, that this was murder, that David was allegedly responsible? We don't know for sure. But what do you think? If this reporting's true, why potentially seek a murder charge against him now? What changed?
So I don't think it's strictly something from the ME report because you would have had that early on. If it was just a matter of toxicology and you thought, well, this is not the kind of drug someone would voluntarily take, this is something that was given to them, I don't know that you would have gone through all of this with the grand jury. You probably would have known that just from the chemicals. So what it suggests to me is that some witness or witnesses have come in and said something. Maybe the investigators have a more cohesive story about motive. Maybe they have some circumstantial evidence that they didn't have at the beginning that would make this look more like a murder than an accident. You know, anytime the story is potentially just someone was trying to cover up a body, you're always going to look at that real hard. You're always going to look at that and be like, really? Were they just getting rid of a body, or are they involved here on a somewhat more nefarious level? So there's all sorts of different kinds of evidence that they could have come up with. Since it's a grand jury proceeding, I sort of lean to thinking it must be something testimonial.
You could 100% be right, and you laid it out perfectly. I do wonder, though, is there a possibility, and again, we don't know this for sure, that if drugs were involved, can you prosecute somebody for murder or manslaughter if you supplied the drugs to someone and they died?
Yeah, I don't think you usually see that. If it's two people voluntarily using drugs and one of them dies, you don't generally see criminal charges against the other person for being the supplier. Now, we're talking.
Man, listen, man. God damn. This drug shit. I don't, how y'all feel about the drug shit? It was the drug shit. Now, listen. We just watched a reaction where a guy killed his child's mother. She was 8.5 months pregnant and left the body in his house for 2 months while he's coming back, going on vacations, coming back, living there. So are there people who will sit with a body right in their confines, in their own home, with the body outside of a trunk, outside in a car, in front of their house, in a car in their name inside the trunk? Yeah, that's not too far-fetched. Like, that's why I'm like, but then the motive of who would have access to his car that would say, hey, let me put her body, let me kill her. Then I also have access to his car, so now let me put her body in his car. Like, who would go all out and do that type of shit? That don't add up. Like, who hates her that much or you that much to where they're trying to pin a body on you? I don't think nobody's trying to pin a body. That's the one thing I'm not like, I don't think nobody's trying to pin a body. Now, could you say, oh, something happened? Maybe they were playing with her nose. You know, that cocaine going out right now around with the fentanyl that's killing everybody. So, but usually, you know, they both would have been taking it if he was putting her on the coke. She's only 13, 14 years old. And they both would have died. You know, when you hear about people who got bad batch, the couples and shit, they both be dead in the house. So I'm like, I don't know about that one. I don't know. Like, are you saying she was trying, what? Overdosed on what? Coke? That's why I'm like, I don't know about the overdose theory. Let's throw that out, man. I'm out on the overdose theory. Nah. This is crazy, though.
Talking about a minor victim here, right? So that adds another level here. Possibly there could be some sort of charge for supplying narcotics to a minor. That might be independently a crime that would be different if that person had been an adult. But generally speaking, when two people are using and one of them overdoses, I don't think you see charges against the survivor.
And there is a possibility that it's not a murder charge or not a homicide charge, but a charge related to the concealment or disposal of the body, right? I mean, we could be talking about a possibility where he is criminally charged, but not necessarily directly in connection with her death.
Sure, 100%. They could go after for some other charge for hiding the body, for interfering with the investigation, for all sorts of things. And by the way, Jesse, part of this too is the suspect's conduct. Has he been cooperative? What has he told authorities? Do the authorities believe that he's cooperating, or do they think they're getting the runaround from him, right? That adds a level to what they're looking at.
And I want to add something else as well. Whatever the potential charge is or could be or allegedly is, the likelihood that a grand jury here would return an indictment is high, right? I mean, explain to our viewers why it is more likely than not that a grand jury would return an indictment given the evidence that was presented.
Well, a grand jury is a completely one-sided proceeding. The government presents its evidence, its theory of the case, and asks the grand jury to return an indictment. You don't hear from the defense. Nobody gets cross-examined by the defense. The defense doesn't put on witnesses. And because of that, there is a tendency for the government to get an indictment from a grand jury when they want. There's that old saying, you can indict a ham sandwich, which loosely means you can get an indictment anytime you want. I don't think that's really true. We've seen even recently sometimes grand juries put off the government and say, no, that's not enough. We're not doing it. But the majority of the time, you will get an indictment when you seek one with the grand jury. The other thing is prosecutors tend to have at least enough evidence to bring charges if they're seeking an indictment in front of a grand jury. It doesn't mean they have enough evidence to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, but they have enough evidence to make the charge.
And just to circle back here, there is ground.
I wonder who all did they call in, because we know they called in his managers. Who else they call in? I gotta get caught up on that too. Who else did they talk to? To like they saying to now, they probably got enough evidence or heard enough confession or whatever from people to hear now, like, wait a minute, there's motive. There's motive. He was mad at her. You know what I mean? The drug shit, I'm not rolling with the drug shit. I don't think it was nothing with drugs. I don't, me personally. This is some crime like boyfriend, girlfriend, dick and pussy shit. Guarantee it. Guarantee it, man. Guarantee it. It's stupid as fuck, bro. Like keeping a body right there in the car. Can't say he didn't know. The car's in front of your house. It's your car, nigga. You can't say you didn't know the body was in there. The car was there for a month, allegedly, sitting there for a month with the body in the trunk. How you didn't know a body was in your car? And they said the car was being moved because they got parking tickets and switched to the other side or some shit. So somebody's moving the car. Somebody moved it across the street. This is crazy, man. But for them to not do anything for 3 months and then now all of a sudden, what changed? What changed? What did y'all hear? What did y'all hear? Who told you? We want to know. We want to know, goddammit. We invested just like everybody else. Shit, we want to know, nigga.
To this. There is an idea that he could be criminally charged because if you couple it with, law enforcement, LAPD, making that statement that they have evidence that David traveled to the Santa Barbara area sometime during the spring of 2025. We're still trying to understand the reason about that. That was still under investigation, but the fact that they mentioned that, the property that he was allegedly staying at in LA, which was reportedly near where the Tesla was found, and by the way, her body found in a Tesla, reportedly his Tesla, reportedly registered to him. The fact that TMZ and other outlets reported that his manager had apparently or allegedly been testifying in front of the grand jury. There is a strong indication. If you were representing David, would you say, be on the lookout? It is a strong possibility that you could be facing a charge at this point, given everything that we've seen being reported right now.
Well, sure. You would always advise your client, if there's a grand jury proceeding going on and your client is a suspect, whether that's capital S suspect or one of many suspects, you would always give your client advice about that, about the grand jury proceeding and what's going on, that it is a possibility. And again, hearkening back to what we just talked about, that it's relatively easy to get an indictment from the grand jury. And certainly here, there's been a lot of public speculation and stuff in the press that he might be a suspect. So I'm sure he's been advised accordingly.
Would it be just him who would be indicted, or if an indictment comes down, you would see multiple defendants? Because there was talk about potentially a second suspect.
And do y'all think he's not cooperating because he's guilty? I don't feel like he lived by any street codes at all. So all that no snitching shit, I don't think it's that at all. Do y'all feel he's not cooperating because he's guilty, or because his team and lawyers are saying don't cooperate? Because if you start looking at the actions, you're not coming out the house. Nigga, it's been 4 months, nobody's seen you nowhere. Is that the actions of a guilty nigga or a not guilty nigga? Like, nigga, I would be like, if I'm sitting here and a murder's on me, I don't gotta do all the talking when cameras come in my face, but I'm not gonna be sitting in a house hiding for 4 months. But what? Nigga, I ain't do shit. And I can prove I ain't do shit. The fuck? Nigga, I'm not gonna sit here and stop living life. Y'all done cancel my tour money, so I ain't getting no money. How do I make money? Like, what am I doing at this point? I can't drop no music, because the first song I drop, they gonna dissect the fuck out that motherfucker, or they gonna bash it so cold. Then they gonna say I don't give a fuck about the girl that died because I'm dropping music already. So he can't take the music route. He can't drop no music videos. What the fuck is he doing right now? Just sitting up doing what? What are you doing, nigga?
Yeah, I mean, now you're getting even deeper into the speculation. So I don't know. It depends what the investigation.
Well, I guess traditionally speaking, like if an indictment comes down in a case like this, would they do it? Everybody that they can charge at one time, they would, or would you see potentially an indictment against David, then a month later indictment against somebody else, or do you see typically an indictment against multiple defendants?
2 people involved, 3 people involved. Do y'all think it's other people involved? Or do y'all think he did this solo? Do y'all think he even did it, period? But my thing is, who would set him up like that and why? What would be the motive to set him up? And how did he not know that a body was in his own car for a month? So the setup element of saying he was set up, or I would throw that out the window. Because at the end of the day, nigga, you had to know it was in your car. It's 30 days, a month. It could have been longer, but I know for sure they said it was a month sitting on that street with the body in it. And you didn't know? That's crazy.
You see it all sorts of different ways. I think more commonly you would see it together, because it would be one grand jury going over a set of facts and a set of witnesses, and you would do it together. But if you subsequently got information about other potential defendants, you could bring the grand jury back. You could convene a different grand jury. You could have a whole different proceeding. So you could have other prosecutions down the road. I would presume you would do them together if you could.
Do you think that this reporting, if true, that he could be facing an indictment, do you think it has anything to do with what we previously reported about regarding Steve Fisher? So this private investigator who was hired by the owner of that property that David was apparently staying at. Again, it was searched by authorities. It was located reportedly near where the Tesla was found. So Steve took to X and he said, although my words have been misquoted by some, what I actually said about certain items found at the Doheny address was that they were items you would expect to find on a farm rather than in a home in the Hollywood Hills. One of those items was a burn cage incinerator advertised to burn at 1600 degrees.
A burn cage. Why the fuck would he have that?
Human cremations are typically performed at approximately 1400 degrees.
Oh.
An incinerator is not legal to use within city limits and serves no legitimate purpose at a residential property in the Hollywood Hills.
Well, goddamn. Well, goddamn. There goes more details, because we heard about the burn cage. I didn't really dig into it, and I just saw that headline. A burn cage was found on his house, but okay, I didn't know the shit was not legal to have in city limits. And it burns at 1600 degrees. You could burn a body at 1400 degrees. Why would you have an incinerator? What would you burning? Like, man, there's so many fucking questions. They ain't telling the shit, dog.
Some will argue that this item was intended as a prop for a video. If that were the case, it raises several obvious questions. Why would a 55-pound bird cage be delivered to a private residence instead of directly to a prop designer or production house? Why would it be ordered before departing on an extended world tour? And why was it never used in any video production?
Hold on now. He could debunk that. If they could find somewhere a text message where he said he needed it for a video or email, now, that's the only way. But that is random as fuck having that shit.
It is also important to note that there were additional items present that could be used in conjunction with the burn cage. To be very clear, this burn cage was not used. It was still new and in the box. However, given that Celeste Rivas Hernandez's remains were ultimately found in the Tesla trunk, the presence of an incinerator at the same residence associated with that vehicle necessarily raises questions about intent.
They can find a purchase date. If they can find a purchase date on that incinerator, because if he had this shit like last year, it was just sitting at his house, they could debunk that. Nigga, I've been had this shit. That would be like a given. Like, go find out when he purchased this shit. Did he purchase after, like what, in August? They said what, like August, beginning of August is when she was possibly killed or put in the car. Was it purchased in August? Was it purchased last year? Like, if it was last year, nigga, I've been had this motherfucker.
The burn cage was not taken during the search warrant, and because it was not used, it appears it's not of importance to any possible criminal investigation, but we think it's important context, even if not criminal. The bird cage and other related items were delivered to the residence under a false name, although the deliveries were accepted at the property. Attached is a photograph of the actual burn cage incinerator as found at the residence, along with an image from Dr. Burns' advertising materials for the product. And I will also say that Steve went on News Nation and said, we found a chainsaw, no purpose for a chainsaw to be at the house.
Ah, come on, man. Chainsaw at a house. Nigga probably got trees. You could use that, man. What the fuck? Come on, man. No purpose for a chainsaw to be at a house? That's crazy. There's always a purpose for a chainsaw to be at a house. What the fuck are you talking about? Right now, in my backyard, I got motherfucking, the neighbor's goddamn lemon tree shit hanging all over my shit. I be going back there cutting that motherfucker. I sure do. Goddamn right. What the fuck you mean, nigga? You probably, I'm not defending them. I'm just saying that there's no purpose for a chainsaw at a house is crazy. Now, is he a landscaper? I don't know. Is that something he do? I don't know. But if it's that, they have that knowledge, like, that nigga don't do shit like that, then that makes sense.
It still had the protective shield over the chain itself. There it is with a burn cage. You got to wonder what this plan was. Now, again, this is Steve Fisher coming out and saying this. We don't know for sure what authorities found or what they consider to be relevant in this investigation. But I do have to wonder, I have to ask, if any of that is related to the news we're talking about today, Rich.
Yeah, I think it's crazy.
Well, it definitely could be. And those are going to raise fascinating evidentiary issues if this matter proceeds to an indictment and goes to trial. I mean, now you have circumstantial evidence to try to establish that the defendant intended to dismember and or incinerate a body, but they weren't actually used to dismember or incinerate a body. So now it becomes sort of tangential circumstantial evidence. And would it even get admitted into trial? Can we establish clearly that it was delivered to this defendant or somehow under his control or somehow related? And I guess there's this possible story that they were just props for a video. Is there anything concrete to establish that? There are a whole mess of issues tied up with that evidence. But yeah, I think if there is investigative work that suggests that this individual was accumulating equipment that would help him get rid of a body, that is going to resonate with the investigators and probably push them to want to get an indictment.
Can you walk us through, it's being reported that they might still be hearing witnesses till February, so an indictment might not be imminent if it is actually going to be coming down. Can you walk us through how it works? You know, if an indictment is handed down, what are the next steps? Would David, let's say he is indicted, does he surrender? Is he arrested? What are the next steps? What should we be on the lookout for when this case, or if this case progresses in that way? Yeah,
sometimes grand jury proceedings like this can linger a while. They don't start on a Monday and end on a Friday necessarily. They can have breaks, and especially we have the holidays here, and you have to schedule them according to the witnesses you want to bring in. So I very much buy the idea that this might go into February before there's a conclusion. At the end of the grand jury proceeding, the prosecutors will seek an indictment, and if they get one, if the grand jury votes to indict, then they are able to indict and start a case against the defendant. He will be arrested. He would plead guilty or not guilty. There would be a proceeding in court to determine whether or not he would be held in custody while the proceedings were going on. There would be an opportunity for his attorneys to try to move to dismiss the charges that were brought against him for whatever legal basis they might have. There would be a period of criminal discovery and disclosure, and then, the case would proceed on its way to trial potentially. And obviously, there's a possibility at any point in that sequence that there could be a negotiated resolution, that there could be a plea bargain, that there could be a deal on the table, that the matter could be concluded without further formal proceedings or a trial.
That nigga definitely got something to do with this shit, but to what extent, don't know. My question, I'm wondering, it just struck me right now while I'm watching this. I'm like, is this the first of its kind in music where there's been an artist that's popular? Although I didn't know the nigga, he obviously doing international tours and all that. He's popular. That had a case like this where a dead body was found in his property, whether in their house or in their car, and all signs look like it leads to them, and they beat the case and went on to still be a prominent artist and tour and have a successful career after. Is this the first of its kind right here? Because I'm trying to think, has there ever been another artist that had this situation? I'm not talking about like a rapper beating a body. Nah. I'm talking about a dead body of a girl that you're dealing with, a spouse, wife, girlfriend, side bitch, being caught in your house or in your car, dead body, sitting for months. You beat the shit and go back on road, on tour, and still be successful as an artist. I don't think we have seen this before in music. Have we? Maybe in some fucking, I don't know, have we? No. So this is crazy. Well, I'm thinking how is he gonna be perceived after this? If he was to beat it, right? If they was to say, oh, we come to a conclusion he had nothing to do with none of this shit. Are things gonna pick up where he left off, or is he gonna be able to just get back on road, still sell out shows, music come out, still go crazy? What do y'all think?
And I appreciate you laying all that out. I think that's a really good explanation about what we can expect. I guess before we wrap things up, and this is another big point, when will we have answers to the questions that we have? And maybe more importantly, when will the family have answers to the questions that they have? Because the ME's findings have been sealed based on the LAPD sought a court order. You do wonder if an indictment comes down, would it list out all the witnesses? Would it list out all the evidence? Will the ME's report then be released? I mean, if an indictment should come down, how much information will we actually get?
Well, you know this as well as anybody, Jesse, because you read a bunch of these indictments. Sometimes they're a little bit thin. I mean, sometimes they just lay out sort of the underlying facts of the crime as alleged, and they don't put in the detail. In fact, I'm not sure I've seen a lot of them where you get a list of witnesses or a list of exhibits. You don't get that kind of thing until you get closer to trial. You don't get to see the evidence until you're in the discovery process in the criminal proceedings. So you might get an indictment now. Is that an answer for his family or her family? Is it an answer for the public? I don't know. I assume because this is a high-profile matter, a celebrity matter, if there is an indictment, I assume there will be people who think it's an unfair indictment. I assume there will be people who will side with the defendant. We see a lot of that these days. So I don't know if it will answer anybody's questions. To me, you don't get a final answer until there's a plea or a verdict at trial.
Rich Schoenstein, thanks so much for taking the time. As always, appreciate it.
All right. There goes our update, man. There goes our update. And I still don't feel like we found out nothing. I still don't feel like we found out much. You know what I mean? Besides him, okay, getting called in possibly in February or some shit. Like, all right, we gotta see what happens, man. At this point, all everybody could do is assume. I think it would probably be like 90-10 right now. Everybody's saying he's guilty. For sure, I think it's 100% everybody believes he got something to do with it, for sure. Now, as far as guilty, did he murder her? Because they're definitely pushing this overdose narrative. Murder or overdose? Which one do y'all think, man? Let me know in the comment section. We'll keep this, as the updates come in, we'll react. Let me know what y'all think, man. How y'all feel about it? I'm gonna give y'all 2 seconds, smash the like. And as always, get ready for the next reaction.